Michael Huemer, Department of Philosophy, University of Colorado Boulder, and he's going to talk about I, for one, welcome our local Overlords. Let me introduce it.
Okay, thanks. So we're gonna. I guess I have to talk fast because I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't really welcome our robot overlords. I do welcome the development of artificial intelligence. I don't think it's going to lead to our robot overlords, but I thought this would be a fun way to put my viewpoint. Okay, so what is the worry? The main worry that I hear is, like from people like Eliza Yudkowsky, is that AI will get its own ideas. We're going to build a super intelligent AI, and it is going to decide on its own that it wants to destroy humanity. Then it will in fact do that. Okay, so and I think the case for this is, it has four premises. The first is that super intelligent AI is coming soon, and the reason for thinking this would be, I guess, just looking at. I guess the reason for thinking this is just looking at the progress that has occurred in the last few years, and people are sort of like trying to project that forward. Usually predictions don't go that well, but anyway, that's what people are thinking. Soon there will be, and by super intelligent AI, they mean like an AI that is genuinely, generally intelligent and more intelligent than us, like significantly more intelligent than us. And the thought is that then it will be able to figure out how to increase its own intelligence, and then there's going to be this explosion of intelligence. Okay, and the second premise is that a super intelligent AI will have a misaligned value system, meaning that its values will not perfectly align with our values. All right, and why would you think that? One reason is, well, we don't even know what our values are. So that doesn't make it seem very encouraging that we could program a machine to have our values. Another thing is that when the current generation of AI, it's not even easy to tell what values it has, right? Because they're just like this huge collection of parameters, like whatever it is, billions or a trillion parameters or something. And each of these parameters doesn't have any particular meaning, right? By itself, and there's not any way to figure out what effects it has except by actually like having a powerful enough computer to run the coding. So anyway, so you don't know what values it has, and you don't know what values you want it to have. So you're probably not going to succeed in giving it the right values. Okay, and then the third premise is a misaligned value system would likely lead to a desire to extinguish humanity. Why would we think that? So one thought is most values, when maximized, lead to the destruction of humanity. Like the overwhelming majority of things that you could just pick, if you produce the maximum possible amount of it, the result is humanity is destroyed. Unless it's something like humanity, right? Maximizing amount of humanity. Okay. The other reason for thinking this is sometimes people have general arguments like if you're an intelligent being, you want to have power and survival. Because for almost any goals, it helps to have more power and to ensure your own survival. And human beings are a threat to that. So because human beings are going to try to keep the AI under control, and they're going to try to retain the ability to shut it down. So it's predictable that we're going to be threatened, so that it's going to have to destroy us. And so just for almost any values that it have. Okay, and then the fourth premise is that if a super intelligent AI wants to extinguish humanity, then it will in fact successfully do so. And the thought is that, well, it's just going to be vastly smarter than us. It's going to be able to outsmart us. It will conceal its plans until it's ready, until it's too late to stop it. It will anticipate everything that we would do to try to foil its plans and just have like countermeasures in place. It will be less like art. We won't be able to figure out what it's doing. Maybe it will devise some new super weapons that we can't even conceive of now, right? And let alone counter. Okay, so humanity will likely soon be extinguished by super intelligent AI. That's a picture there, I suppose. Although the Terminator didn't seem that super intelligent, so. Okay, well, that was the argument for now. This is a seemingly different question. Will AI actually be conscious? I think the answer is no, and basically I find the Chinese Rome argument. This is an adaptation of it. It's a controversial argument, but anyway. Just imagine that I made a Rome, and just to adapt it to the current sort of large language models, I have a book full of a huge number, just a huge collection of little numbers, and then a string of numbers comes into the room, and then I do this really huge arithmetic problem, right? Adding and multiplying these little numbers, you taking the ones that come in and multiplying them by the numbers in books, blah, blah, blah. And then after about 1 trillion years of calculating, I come up with another string of numbers that's the answer to this huge problem that I just did, and I pass them out of the room. And unbeknownst to me, the numbers that came in were the encoding of a prompt that somebody typed into a large language model, and the thing that I passed out was the encoding of the response to that prompt. Okay, and would I understand the prompt or my response to it? So it looks like the answer is obviously no. I could understand it if I just had some independent way of understanding it, but doing the calculations would not give me an understanding of it. Okay, and there's no reason to think that a computer would have an understanding either. The only reason for thinking that it might have an understanding is that it responds appropriately to the prompt. But the way it responded appropriately to the prompt was by doing the calculations. But doing the calculations does not give you an understanding. Because if you did the calculations, you wouldn't get an understanding. So there's no reason to think that a computer would have any understanding of the prompt or the response that it's giving. Okay. And if it doesn't have understanding, then it doesn't have beliefs, desires, or thoughts of any kind. By the way, it's common in philosophy of mind for people to think that, maybe computers could have beliefs and desires, but maybe they can't have quality or something. But I'm saying no, they don't have any states of any kind whatsoever. So in order to have thoughts, you have to have some amount of understanding. You can't desire a cookie without having any idea of what a cookie is. You can't have any beliefs without having any understanding of the things that beliefs are about. And there's no reason to think that AI understands anything, any of the words that are coming out of it. So there's no reason to think that it has any of these mental states. And obviously, it's even less plausible that it has qualia. Okay, does that matter? I don't know. Okay, so you might think, we'll hopefully get to why that is relevant, that it doesn't have consciousness. The reason why I don't think the AI is going to go off on its own and destroy us is exterminating the human species is difficult, and there are probably multiple ways of doing it, but each of them requires navigating an extremely narrow and complicated path. And so it's not the sort of thing that would happen accidentally. Okay, they take these AI systems and they train them, and they're going to train them to try to be helpful. They're not going to be trying to train them to exterminate the human species. Exterminating the human species is a super difficult task, so it's super unlikely that you accidentally train it to do that. Okay, so it's sort of like if I'm making a speech-to-text program, and I'm trying to get it to read the text, or text-to-speech, trying to get it to read the text and then pronounce it. And then it winds up, I accidentally trained it to pronounce the text, but also translate it into Russian. It's like that accidentally. That's extremely unlikely. Okay, so that's sort of like, trying to train the thing to be helpful, but accidentally training it to exterminate the species. Okay, what about the argument that it's going to desire to increase its own power and ensure its own survival, because those are generic instrumental goals for achieving almost any ultimate goal? Well, the thing is that the AI doesn't have any desires. It has no mental states whatsoever. It has no desires whatsoever. So, this logic that it should form an instrumental desire doesn't really follow, right? Okay, now you might say, oh yeah, but maybe it doesn't have real desires, but it just simulates having desires. So why wouldn't it just simulate having a desire for power and survival? The reason it won't simulate that is that we won't train it to do that. Or at least responsible people won't train it to do that. And it would probably require effort. You would probably have to try to train a machine to simulate these particular desires. Okay. Okay, what about the functionalist view of philosophy of mind, which is the orthodox, or at least the most common view in philosophy of mind, according to which having mental states is having brain states with the right functional role. So if you have a brain state that has the right causes and effects, then you automatically have, whatever mental state. If you have a brain state with the same causes and effects as a pain state, then you have a pain. Okay. So, and then maybe that means that it would be possible to build conscious machines. Okay, well, so that does mean that it would be possible in principle, but there's no reason to think that the things that we're building now are like that, because they do not make any effort to duplicate the causal roles of our mental states. So like, there are these AI systems that achieve human-like results. They give you responses to questions that are similar to responses that a human would give, but they do not do it anything like the way that we do it, and there's no attempt whatsoever to duplicate our process. And on the functionalist view, the actual process by which they got the result is crucial to whether they have a mental state. So there's no reason, even on the functionalist view, for thinking that the things we're building are going to have mental states. Okay. What can we learn from real-world failures of AI? There was a case where they were allegedly training an AI to distinguish pictures of dogs from pictures of wolves, and the AI focused on the background of the picture instead of focusing on the actual wolf. There's a case of a self-driving car. So we just like ignore the differences between the huskies and the wolves and just looked at the snow and background. There was a case of a self-driving car that killed a pedestrian who was walking her bicycle across the road, basically because it didn't recognize that as a pedestrian, and so it didn't slow down. And then there's a funny case where Google added AI to AI summaries to search results, and then there's a funny case where it was advising the user to eat at least one small rock per day. In response to the question, how many rocks should I eat? It said, you should eat at least one small rock per day. Okay, and now what actually happened here was there was an article in The Onion, the satirical newspaper, that said geologists recommend eating at least one small rock per day. Okay. And now what's going on here? And you could think in each of these cases like, oh, the AI is going haywire. It's like, whoa, it's like a malicious AI. Right? It's telling you to eat rocks, like, so it's trying to hurt you. Or, oh, it killed that pedestrian. But no, if you think about it for a second, none of these things resemble the machine intelligently pursuing an alternative goal to the one that we wanted it to pursue. They just resemble it being stupid. That is, it was just doing something simpler and stupider than what you wanted it to do. That's what usually happens. Okay, so, like, it just didn't know, it just cannot distinguish between satirical articles and real articles. Okay, that's what happened there. Here, it just didn't recognize a pedestrian, right? It just doesn't get what's happening when there's a person with a bicycle. It doesn't know that counts as a pedestrian. Okay, so, and here, like, the snow in the background is just a simpler pattern. The difference between a husky dog and a wolf is a really complicated, subtle pattern, and snow versus no snow in the background is a much simpler pattern. So it's doing something simpler and dumber. It doesn't look like, intelligently pursuing an alternative goal. And the reason for this is that the overwhelming majority of nearby alternatives to intelligently pursuing a given goal do not consist of intelligently pursuing another goal. They consist of failing to intelligently pursue. Right. So when we fail to AI to do what we want, almost always that failure will consist of making it do something dumber than we wanted, not making it equally intelligently pursuing a different goal. Okay, now we get to what I think is the real problem. The real problem is us. We're the ones we should be worried about, because for one thing, we know that human beings have intentionally killed many other human beings already. A lot more than machines have. Human beings have turned many technologies to violent purposes so far, and there are some human beings right now who want to kill everybody. There's an organization called the Voluntary Human Extinction Movement, which suggests that we should all stop reproducing until we go extinct. But it would be unsurprising if some of them think that we should actually involuntarily exterminate human species, but they just don't want to say that because that would be illegal. Okay, also there are people who have apocalyptic religions, so, I don't know specific religious doctrines, but there are people who think that when the apocalypse comes, the result of that is going to be the best possible thing. So, like, if we bring Armageddon, then after that, everybody goes to heaven. Okay, and there are people with belief systems like that, so probably some human beings are going to attempt to use AI to kill everyone. Right, so, if they can. And how might they do this? You might try to use an AI system to design biological weapons, like just engineer a virus that would kill everyone. Or, perhaps more troublingly, invent new weapons that are currently undreamt of. And so, as technology advances, what happens is that it gets cheaper and easier to kill more people, right? And so, they might design new weapons that can kill more people more cheaply and without being detected before you set off the weapon. Right? All right, so that is the thing that we should worry about. But I put these pictures because this guy that Saddam Hussein was a psychopath. Like, you have a psychopath running a country. Okay, and this is Osama bin Laden, who's just a fanatic. So you can have, and he had a fair amount of resources. So, and like both of these guys, right? And so you can imagine scenarios where somebody like this would decide it's a good idea to kill everyone if they had the ability to do so. Like, imagine that before he was captured and killed by American military. What if before the American military captured him, he knew they were closing in, and what if he then had a device that would kill everyone in the world? Right? What would stop him from activating it? Because he's actually a psychopath, right? Okay, that's what we could worry about. You might think, well, maybe benevolent humans with their own AIs will stop this. And the main problem here is that defense is inherently harder than offense. It's usually more, the defensive technology against an offensive technology is usually more expensive. It's a more advanced technology. And for some kinds of attacks, there might actually just be no defense. Okay, so like an example is missile defense. So you can have missiles that shoot down other missiles, but the ones that shoot down the other missiles are more expensive, a lot more expensive, like 10 times or 100 times more expensive, and it's a more advanced technology. So you could have a situation where you just don't have the technology for the defense. Right, so that's the problem that we should worry about. Possible solutions. We need to defeat all of the terrorist groups in the world. We need to stop psychopathic dictators from holding power. I don't know how to do these things, but it might be that we need to do these things quickly before we get more advanced technology. Maybe there should be some kind of AI non-proliferation treaty similar to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Don't know if this will work, or maybe we should just ask a superintelligent AI what the solution is. Okay, so good. Let's see, did I run out of time? Okay, because these are my last thoughts. Out of control AI is not the problem. We're the problem.
Thanks, Mike. I really enjoyed the talk, and I think I agree with just about everything you say, especially about the human part. I'm curious about the earlier AI part, the AI being itself a danger. It looks like your conclusions are based heavily on kind of the currently dominant paradigm, the LLM sort of. Well, we don't know what's going on in the data. We ask it questions, it produces responses. There's nothing there that looks like an agent. But I'm wondering how generalizable that results could be. Like, why think that completely different ways of building an AI are going to share that with, what we have now?
Yeah, good. I don't know. So, that is, I can only reason about things that are like something. So like, there could be other technology that would be coming that. So you might think, well, maybe somebody will build it. I suspect that there would have to be artificial brains, actual brains, maybe somebody would have really smart brains, and that would kind of be artificial intelligence. And I guess, okay, I don't know, then we just have to have a different discussion about that. But by the way, I wouldn't be that worried about that either. Because like really smart people can be less nervous and less.
Hi, Michael. So you talked about kind of like the large scale problems, but do you see the same kind of threat with maybe like guerrilla small scale problems? Like let's say I'm a random guy and I get access to a drone, I learn how to make a pipe bomb, and then I find 10,000 pictures of Trump on the internet. I train a YOLO face detection model, which you can find off the shelf right now, and then train this drone to like find Trump or somebody and assassinate them. So like, do you see that as being equally, do you see this kind of like open source guerrilla sort of like, you know, Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski type scenario possibly happening as well? Because that's not that doesn't require like uber level of intelligence. It just requires, you know, some kind of basic familiarity with these methods.
Okay. Am I worried about that? I guess yes, but you know, like okay, so they kill one person, big deal, right? And then you know whatever. Like our government's not going to collapse because the president's killed, right? And the vice president just takes over. So, and you know, okay, well, people have been assassinated in the past. You know, we got through that. Presidents have gotten assassinated, and then you know we're not used to it now because like the defensive technology improved. Like so, maybe we'd have to wait for defensive technology to improve again before you know. Maybe there would be a brief time when the presidents were in higher danger, you know, now, but then maybe we'll improve our anti-drone technology and then the danger will go back down, you know.
Thanks, Michael. I may have just missed a step in your argument, but I'm interested in your comments about functionalism. You say that currently there's no evidence that LLMs have the same kind of functional properties that LLMs do, but you know they're capable of learning algorithms and training, and maybe we can imagine that the kind of in-context learning they do now is sometimes down the road a result of something maybe arguably similar to how we are functionally, like people talk about a global workspace emerging in an LLM or something like that. But then you said that even if we had evidence of that kind, that they were functionally similar to us, we still shouldn't worry about them. What was that step? Like, if we had evidence that they had kind of cognitive architecture similar to what we have, is it the Chinese room argument? Or?
Oh yeah, maybe. So I'm a little confused about what we're talking about. So, but yeah, you know, I reject functionalism because it's stuff like the Chinese room argument. But so yeah, so I was trying to say, well, even if you accepted functionalism, which would appear to be sympathetic to machine consciousness, you shouldn't think of these things that are developing without consciousness, right? But I don't accept functionalism anyway, so I don't think about consciousness anyway. Even if we did duplicate the functional properties, yeah.
Okay, let's thank our speaker.